How are you guys? How's the material?
It's great.
Not too much?
I think it's manageable now. I think I've gotten used to a system now where I'm pretty comfortable doing it.
Okay, good. Yeah, and hopefully, the last the part two I sort of front loaded a little bit and then slow it down before the test comes. At least that's my hope. Good. Any questions about last week or anything else while we're just getting us started? Because if not,
Yeah, actually, I just have a quick question for all of us who did the lab, who did I believe it was the posture. Are we going to get credit for that,
yeah.
or do we still have to? Okay.
No, if you come to lab, I'm trying to get the injury prevention done tonight. So then you just have a few whatever you have left over on that. And then you don't need and the posture as well. So we did that one of those do those in lab tonight. Finish those two, and then if you are in lab, you don't have to do the discussion because you're already talking about it. And so yeah, you don't have to do any of those. And I
Thank you.
have sign-in sheets for you guys on that. I still want you to keep your data sheet so you upload something actually probably, but we could talk about the details in class tonight because I'm growing with the in-person stuff every semester a little bit, and so it's sort of developing into this, and this seems to be pretty good. Is that helpful for you guys to do some of those in lab? I mean, in person? Hello.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I know it's a little weird. Let's see, what do we got? Look at that. We have a couple more people here. Well, we can get. If any questions, you just speak up. Do not wait for me to ask for anything. Just butt in.
Yeah,
Because,
Dr. M,
go ahead.
I have a question about the questions and tips. Just like the little 5-pointer assignments.
Oh yeah, shoot, I gotta put.
I think for the last 2 weeks I haven't had any points to that. Could you?
Yeah, I gotta do those. I'm sorry, that's my bad. I'm
good.
reading them, and that's the one assignment I have to go back in and give people credit. It's like it's not attached, and so I'm always forgetful on that. So thank you for bringing it up. That's on my list.
You are forgiven.
Thank you. So it'll be done tonight. So I'm gonna do that, and was one of my main things today. All the grading.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been pretty all right, but it's been a tough week in the office. And so good. That's good. And then anything else before we start? No? Good. Then let's get going. So what we have today, and again, we're going to be in lab tonight. We're going to do, let me put this up here. We're going to do, I think last week was pretty good. If you were interested in coming, we will have cadaver access again. That was very interesting, I think. And then we'll talk more about the upper extremity. We do last material. We go through it in the models and on the skeleton and see the attachments and all that of the muscles. So that usually helps. And then we also, as we just said previously, we complete the posture eval and the injury prevention eval. So if you're in lab, you don't have to do those online. We upload something so we are clear, but you can do those in class and also the discussions of those in class because you're there talking about it. So that's for what we're going to do tonight. 6:00 we're meeting, and I'm very excited. These labs are a lot of fun. So of course I'm a nerd, so that's what I'm thinking that. But anyway, so without any more blah blah blah, I can just go right into the material what I want to talk about this week. Get me a little out of the way. How is this better done? Hold on. It's too many windows. No, not me big. The picture big. Me small. Sorry. Oops. There you go. And then I'll get these out of here. So this week, when we look at the stuff that we're working on, we're really working on the lower extremities now. So we're finishing up the musculature. And let me find my way around here so I can do that. There we go. All right, is this moving for you guys? The picture, can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. So when I look at the, again, like the same as with the upper extremity muscles, I'm going to look at groupings of the lower extremity muscles as well. So when I look at the hip joint, sort of first, actually, this shows me the hip joint. I want to kind of look from up here more a little bit. When I look at the hip joint, I look at the thigh moving. How is the thigh moving? The thigh is moving forward, as in bringing the leg frontward up, and then it moves backward. So that's flexion and extension. And then the thigh also moves to the outside. That would be abduction, and then it moves back to the inside. That would be adduction. And then that's pretty much covering up here in terms of the thigh movement. We also have the rotational movement, in and out rotation on the foot happens actually up here. That doesn't happen down at the foot or at the knee. So that's the third sort of set of functions up here that we need to look at from a movement perspective. And so when we start with what we have from a flexion, from bringing the thigh up perspective, we're going to look at the muscles in the front of the part of the body. We're going to look at the muscles most likely more proximal to what we want to move. So those muscles are up here in this section. And so we have this psoas here, right here, that long sliver muscle that goes up to the lumbar and T12 even up here, and attaches to all of those bones. See how thick that attachment is, and then it reaches to the inner thigh in there. You could see that. We can see that thing. Oh God, this is a little big. Can I make this a little smaller? Doing. All right. There we go. Look at that massive attachment. Then it goes right on the inner thigh and attaches in here. And so you could see how that, when that contracts, it shortens, it brings that thigh up, and it flexes that. Like this brings the thigh up like that position. This shows a stretch because you extend the thigh, you stretch, you elongate the distance from attachment to the muscle, and so that gives you the stretch. This is a really pretty good stretch for the psoas. You can even bring the arms up and arch that whole back, whole front fascia backwards a little bit. That really works in here. If you drive a lot and then you get up and go like, oh, and I have to straighten out, then that's your psoas. That's tight. That's that muscle. The other one around here is the iliacus. That attaches right in here in the iliac fossa by the ilium, here the bone, and then it goes to the lesser trochanter, the inner thigh again, together with the psoas. So together we call this muscle the iliopsoas muscle, and that's our main hip flexor kind of muscle that we really work on when we talk about hip flexion. So let me make sure I cross. That's on your list. I'm also looking at the term list, which is the stuff you're responsible for the test. The homework is a little more extensive than the test, but I'm trying to then deduce it because it's a lot of stuff. Well, you probably tell me. And then because I'm just teaching it at this point. And then so that's the hip flexor group. So then the knee flexor, shoot, that is actually a problem. I don't have an overview on this one. And then we're going to go the opposite. So we brought the thigh up, and now we're going to bring the thigh backwards. And when we look at that, we look at the extensor groups, and then that goes right into the glutes. Right here, the glute maximus is really strong with that. Where you see the hip extension here. So it's attached. The glute maximus is attached. See this here, right here? This attachment, that's the hip. So that's the sacrum right in here. And then the max, that's the max, goes right into this IT band here. And when it contracts, you can see how it pulls that thing back. So the extension of the thigh doesn't happen at the hamstring. The extension of the thigh happens more at the glute max. And so that's kind of interesting for that. And then when we go into the musculature, the other gluteal musculature on the side here, the medius and the minimus, which for us, we just put the gluteus medius up and as a one that we really thoroughly study. Then we're get more into the pulling the hip sideways position. So we have these muscles here and they contract. See, they're attached here again, very close to where the glute max is, but further on the outside, and then go into this big bump on the greater trochanter. And so when we contract these, that brings the thigh outward. And so that's hip abduction. So that's what those muscles kind of do. So we have now, and then the tensor fasciae latae too. Sorry, where is that? Here, the tensor fasciae latae is a muscle that's attached here in the front of the hip bone, we're almost by the ASIS, and then it goes down and attaches to the IT band on the front side. And so that also, when that contracts, it brings the hip to the outside. It can slightly assist in also flexion, but not really. The other flexor muscle that I forgot to mention, that's why I was having a little brain fart over there, is when we go back to the hip flexors here. The other one that we're going to talk about in a minute is going to be the top quad. That also helps because the top quad muscle is attached at the hip part and then goes all the way to the knee. But because it's covering the hip joint, the rectus femoris, that will be, it also helps as a hip flexor. So that's just the start there. We'll cover that when we go to the quadricep muscle because that's it's one of those. It's just the one that goes all the way up to the hip. So then we have the tensor fasciae latae. So we have up there we have now flexion covered, we have extension covered, we have bringing the hip outward covered. The one thing we have not covered yet is turning the foot outward. So that's the lateral extension group, and that one is the piriformis. That's the real big one for us. So the piriformis is actually attached at the sacrum, on the front side of the sacrum. You can see it here. No, this is the back side still. I don't have a picture for the front side. Somewhere else I do. But it goes in here to the front, then it goes to the top of the greater trochanter. And so when actually the greater trochanter moves and this is stable, it turns it outward. And so that is what moves the foot to the outside. So that's kind of interesting that rotation, that foot rotation is happening up at the hip. That muscle is interesting because it can cause back pain or sciatica because the big nerve that goes through it is squeezed by it, and then it can shoot pain down to the leg. And so that can be a problem for that. And so that gives us the outside rotation. And then lastly, what we want to touch on is the adductor group. And now we're actually going into the thigh muscles. That's the only thigh muscle part that works up on this. And so this group is all attached on the back part of the thigh, really, but goes to more on the medial end, pulling medially. It's attached on the backside, pulling medially, and then those muscles go to the pubic bone and then to the sit bone in the back. So two different places. And so most of them, what we call them, is the adductor groups. And so for us, the cool thing about that is adduction is the motion, bringing the thigh back to the midline, and the muscle group is called the adductor group. So if you look on your term list, you have an adductor magnus, an adductor longus and brevis, and then you have two more, and those are called the pectineus and the gracilis. And those are the ones. The one is the long one that goes all the way down to the knee and attaches to the pubic bone, actually in the front here, or below, but it looks a little bit like it's too much on the sit bone. It's more like here, goes all the way up to there when you really work it on people. And that's called the gracilis. That's one of those names that still is the adductor group, but it's a different name. And then the last one is all the way up here on top, very proximal, and that's known as the pectineus. And we'll point those out on the models as well in class. And when you study for the test, you watch the videos in the test review. Make sure you start watching those if you're a visual person, particularly, and then you get because those are the models I then have pictures on the test that I point out the structures, and I want you to know. And I only want you to know the pictures on the term list. So make sure you don't worry about starting any other ones. All right, so that's all the motions, I believe, on the hip. Was that sort of crystal clear or not really?
Yes, it is.
It's pretty all right? Okay. So then from there, what do we got? The IT band. I covered the IT band. The IT band is that white structure. I'm looking on the term list, make sure I cover all the structures. Where was that? God, I like this presentation. What do you actually see? Do you see my pictures? Yeah, good. I like the presentation, but it's hard for me to maneuver it, so I got to think about that. The IT band is this here, this white band on the outside. A lot of times when we are runners and stuff, it really hurts. You can foam roll it, although a lot of people think foam rolling the IT band is not really that helpful. What you want to foam roll is up here more where the muscle is, the TFL, the tensor fasciolatum muscle. So that's what that person is doing here, going right up by the hip. That's why I put it in the booklet so you can see those things as well in there. So then from there we go to the motions on the knee joint. And what are we going to do on the knee joint? On the knee joint, we're going to mostly bend the knee and straighten it back out. So that's kind of easy. So we got two groups that really do that. One is the hamstring groups in the back, and those are all attached to the sit bone, the ischial tuberosity, and then they go either to the inside part of the knee or the outside part of the knee. And so you got three of them. You got the biceps femoris. Look at that. Who would have thought I missed like a capitalization in my book thing? So you got called the biceps femoris, and that's the one on the outside, right here, that goes from the sit bone to the outside knee. Oh, and what I forgot to tell you, that there's one sliver that comes from the thigh bone here, from the linea aspera, I'm sure it is. Oh, I'm not worried about labeling that as a label, but when I could put that in. So there's one that the second one, when you look at the word bi, means two, right? So these are two heads, but we call it one muscle because the insertion is the same, and that's out here by the fibula side. So that's how you kind of remember the biceps goes to the outside femoris, and then the other one, the inside ones on the medial side, we have two of them. We have a semi-tendinosus and a semi-membranosus, and those are two different muscles just because the whole length of the muscle has its own thing. And the one underneath, the flat one, is the membrane one, the flatter membranous one, and the one that's tendinous is the one that's a little more stringy. You can kind of see it as you go distally down here. If they're laying over there, you see this is more tendiny. So I call that's the semi-tendinosus, and then the other one underneath is a little more broad. So that's more membrane-like. But, that's the way I remember those. And those took me quite a while. So I think, yeah, I put those together on the list. So if it comes as a test question, then that's viewed as either or. So you don't have to worry too much about it in the differentiation of those two. But if you see two of them, it's on the inside. It's the semimembranosus tendinosus. If you see by the insertion one of them, you can say it's on the outside. That's the biceps femoris. And collectively, those bend the knee when they contract. So you want to stretch them out by extending the knee, which I put that here because it's one of those things. A lot of people get that funky, and then they tear them, and that hurts and all of that stuff. And then, or the injury, makes him not be able to play sports. And then we got the large group in the front, and that's the quadricep group, and that's the one that extends to the thigh, or the knee, I should say, extends the knee. So those muscles, there are four of them. The two big ones are on the outside, on the inside, these here, this one and this out here. And they actually attach on the back side of the femur and wrap around to the front of the knee. You can see that kind of like here, how here you can see they start on the back side here and then they wrap around. And here's the front part. So the one in the middle here, the thick one in the middle, is the one underneath. You can't see it here. It's called the vastus intermedius, and that one starts in the front of the thigh, and then all together they all go into the kneecap and then into the tibial tuberosity ultimately. But they come from a few different places. So the ones on the outside come from the back. The deep one on the inside, the intermedius, come from the inner thigh. From the front of the medial thigh, from underneath here. And then the last one, the one I mentioned briefly before, the rectus femoris, goes all the way up to the hip bone. This is the front of the pelvis here, all the way up here, and then goes past the knee joint. So that's the one that also helps a little bit with lifting up the thigh and flexing the thigh as well. So that's the 4 of those. I'm not going to make you, um, identify an intermediate, but the other ones are pretty easily to be seen on the models. So make sure you study those, the inside, the outside, and then the one in the middle. And if I don't remember if it's, well, let me not say it's not on the test. So if it is on the test, the intermediates, then you just see underneath, I pull the top one off and then show at the bone underneath. And if you come to class tonight or next week, we do this. But we can also take the thighs out tonight if you guys want to look at that tonight, all right, to get a little head start, because the test I open next week. Or I can open it earlier too if you guys like. I kind of open it when you're ready. But anyway, that's those 4 muscles that are making up the quadricep, and collectively, as the main function, that what they do is they extend the knee. They straighten the leg out. And when you think about standing, what that does is it keeps you up against gravity. You're not falling down. If your quads don't work, you're going to fall down. Your knees will buckle because they don't keep you up. So a lot of what those actually are in some ways, are postural muscles in that respect. But that's the reason why those are the strongest muscle we have in the body. The other ones that are also anti-gravity muscles, which are the ones that keep you standing up, are the ones in the butt. The glute muscles are also doing that. And then, so we have in the butt, we have the glutes in the back, then the quads in the front. And when we get to the calves, which we go in a minute, we got the ones in the back again. That's why the calf muscles are strong in the back. You can see they're pretty strong muscles back there. Just look at some bicycle people. All right. So that's as far as the knee stuff is concerned. Oh, no, I forgot one. I forgot the popliteus. And the sartorius. The sartorius is such a cool muscle. The sartorius is this overlaying superficial muscle known as the talar muscle. And that muscle, sartorius means talar, and that muscle does multiple functions. Look at that. It flexes, laterally rotates, and abducts the femur. Whoa. Yeah, it brings it forward, it rotates it outward, and it pulls it to the outside. That's what that means. And then it flexes the medial, rotates the tibia. Whoa. It helps bend the knee and it helps turn the knee inward. And so that's essentially the function of putting the knee over to the opposite leg. And that was a way of sitting the way we had the old tailor people sitting. And so that's why they called that the talar muscle. It's attached here in the front of the hip, the SIS, and goes to the inside of the knee here on the medial side. It's interesting, on that medial side of that knee, when you actually palpate on yourself, it's kind of, you hit the kneecap and go diagonally down a little bit. And there you have a piece of bone. And you got the few muscles coming in. There we had the gracilis now. We had the semitendinosus membranosus going in there. And now we also have the sartorius going in there. And so that is a place where we can have where we can have tenderness from multiple different sources. And a lot of times they do. So look at it. This is a complicated way of basically saying, like, bring your knee over to the opposite side. And it goes again through the superficial muscle, has a lot of motion. It sort of guides the motion pattern. And then the deeper underneath muscle can make sure everything is stabilized. So that's an interesting one to see that very thoroughly. Now, let me see where we got the popliteus. Look at that. And then we got one small one that actually does cause a lot of pain in the back of the knee, known as the popliteus. And the popliteus, what that does, it stabilizes the knee by flexioning and rotating the tibia internally a little bit when we lock the knee in. And so that creates stabilization. And that muscle is attached to the femur on the outside from the back. This is the back, here, back of femur. And then it goes across and goes on the tibial side, medial tibial side, right there at that crease, at that crest on the back. You can, if you palpate, it can get really sore on people. But if you have a sore place, a muscle attachment, and you work that a little bit, it stimulates it a little bit. That can be helpful. The trigger point of that is where the X is. So it's very underappreciated, the place where that. This picture is pretty good because it's fairly accurate in the anatomy, because this is from Janet Travell's book, and she's a physician, or was. So she's accurate from the clinical perspective. And so, if you go with massage, don't shy away from working it. Be careful not to go right into the back of the knee and pull straight in. You got delicate structures there. But if you go to the bone side where you have the muscle, then you can certainly be gentle, but work it thoroughly and spend some time on it and feel those nodules. Anyway, that's the popliteus. That's the last knee muscle, a little bit aberrant, not really involved with too much emotion, more with stabilization. And then as we get to the lower compartment of the leg, if we get to the leg, I put it in multiple compartments, but no, scratch that. Before we go to the compartments, when we look at the back of where is it? Where is my gastroc? Oh, it was above here. So when we look at the leg, the first one you see, the big one, is the big muscle in the back, this thing bulging out. And so that's a muscle group of 3 muscles called the triceps surae combined. We don't usually use that word, but if you read it anywhere and you go like, surae, what the heck is that? Then you kind of go like, oh, let's think somewhere. But what a triceps means, it's got 3 heads or 3 muscles with it. And what we have is 2 bulges on the outside, one on the, superficially, one medial, one lateral. Those are the gastrocnemius. And then underneath that, when you take that away, we have a muscle. Indeed, the darker red is the attachment. This is why this picture is kind of cool. The pink is the muscle, and then this is the tendon part. And so that muscle is really attached at the deep, or in the middle layer kind of the tibia in the back, and then the fibula. Look at how thick the fibula is. And then both of those go into the heel bone, the calcaneus. And what those muscles do is they make you be able to stand up on your toes. And so if you can't do that, then we definitely first and foremost going to look at what's going on with these muscles, because they're massive. And really, really strong. And then when you take those are anti-gravity muscles as well. Those are the ones in the calf. The other ones do help as well, but they're not the same level of massive. And so then underneath all of that, when I look at the leg, then we're going to look at 3 compartments of the leg muscle. We look at an anterior compartment in the front, and then a lateral compartment on the side. And then in the back, once we take that gastroc and soleus away, we look at the posterior compartment. And the posterior compartment, we could start with that. But anterior and posterior compartment are very similar. They all have 3 muscles that we concern ourselves with. There's always more, but this gives you a pretty good understanding of the whole thing. And when I like the color scheme here, so we always have in the back and in the front, we have a muscle called the tibialis. In the back, it's called the posterior. In the front, it's going to be called the anterior. And the tibialis muscle basically goes from the tibia, the deep calf, really, also a little bit on the fibula as well, probably here. Yeah, see fibula as well. And then the tibia and the fibula, they have a thick membrane in between. So it also goes in that. And they call that the interosseous membrane. And then it goes to the ankle, sort of the inner arch part of the ankle. And so they both do that. And so they actually also help you lift up on your tippy toes. When you do that, they help raising it as well. They support the gastroc. But they're also involved, of course, if you have flat arches and stuff like that. So then those come in. And so the one in the back is here in the back. And then if we go up here to the anterior compartment, see, we got this one here, the one in the front, goes right here. And it also goes to the arch part. It just comes from the front. It doesn't come from the back. And so it kind of has, in some ways, works fairly similarly. When I tested this one, we bring the foot up, or the foot up, and then I pull on it. And if you can hold it and it holds really firm, then that's good. And then I bring the foot down a little to the inside, and then I still go down and out, and then that tests the posterior one. So the function is fairly similar. But back to let me see. Let's stay up here when we go to the anterior one, because this one's easier to see here. Then we have the red one here, and then we have the purple one, and see where they go. One goes to the toe, the big toe, and the other one goes to the smaller toes, the 4 other ones. And so we call the big toe the hallux. And so this one is called the extensor hallucis longus. Why? Because it pulls the big toe up. And so you see that's coming out from underneath. So it's kind of not, it goes deeper, of course. Look at it goes all the way up here when you take all the other ones off. And then it goes to the hallux. And I think it goes to the distal part. Yeah, of course, that goes to the furthest away distal part. And then as we get deeper with these toe muscles, we have underneath ones that go to the more proximal segments and then do sort of similar to them. But anyway, that's the hallux. And then we got one that's called digitorum, and that goes to the digits, the fingers. And that's here, extensor digitorum longus. And that's the longest because it's the long one that most superficial goes from all the way up here to the last segment of the toes and then holds the toes up. And then that makes up the anterior compartment. And in the posterior compartment, we got the same constellation. We got a flexor. Now it's not extension because we push the toes and the big toe down. And we got a digitorum and a hallucis. The thing that's interesting on this one is that the hallucis starts on the outside where the pinky toe is, and then it goes across, where is here? Look at it. It goes across on the foot and it crosses over and goes to the big toe on the bottom, the end segment again. Again, the more deeper we go, the more closer we come together. So the more proximal it will be the attachment. So that's the hallucis. It crosses over, and then the digitorum one, of course, also crosses over and goes from the inside of the calf to the outside part where the digits are. So you have to be careful when you study those or go through those in the homework that you realize it seems off. It seems a little weird that they are like that. And then we have a lateral compartment, and the lateral compartment is kind of my favorite actually, because that is like when you have twisted ankle people, that muscle always on fire, and I can it really help them by making that muscle work or show them how to do stuff like that, or a little protection that it doesn't wear it out more. But that muscle is also easy to remember because it's on the outside of the leg, which is where the fibula is. So we call the muscle the fibularis muscle, and so that's helpful for that as well. And we have a fibularis longus, a brevis, and here we have a new word, a tertius, a tertiary one, basically. And so the longus goes all the way, the brevis goes a little less all the way, and then the tertius is a little sliver on the bottom. For us, it's just one muscle. I'm not really too, that clinically speaking, they just support each other. So it's just one continuous muscle with different fibers for us. Good. So that I think covers most of that stuff in terms of the lecture part. How is that for you guys? Make sense or complicated?
It makes sense.
Okay, good. And then in terms of what we're doing this week, well, the other thing I wanted to show you is, and I'm going to send a text out with that. I've done that last semester. What I've made is, let me pull it up here so I can go through it. What I made is, a long time ago, I made a chart with sort of overall all the origins, the insertions, and then the actions of all the muscles. So today I have the arms, we did last week. And then I have the wrist. Here we did the lower one. So I have all of them. And then I have pictures that shows the attachments and then just has a line more or less. So it's really helpful to study sort of. And I group them together with what those muscles do, and I use some color and all of that kind of stuff. And then I label, which number it is. So oh, here, this is the picture where the piriformis is from the front where you can see it. So that's a nice picture for that. And so I'm going to text you guys that as well and put it in the notes of the YouTube. Just in case, it's just tools that I put together for massage therapists and you guys and myself, obviously, as well.
Hey, Dr. M, is this
yeah,
in the module, or you said you're going to text us?
Yeah, I'm going to. Do you like it?
It's really helpful. I'm really invested in this
Good
idea.
I'll text it out and then I will put it in my pro tips because it just made it. So I haven't updated the pro tips yet. Good. So I'll put that up right when we finish in the text. So that way you
Thank
can
you.
download it and have it. And then in terms of the rest of this week, what do we have going? I don't think we have much going. We just keep studying now for a little bit. Let me put this up high and then go to my where I can maneuver it. Week 7. We did the extremities, so you got some questions. Not too many questions here, so everything slows down a little bit. We do a little discussion and then work on the injury prevention, but that one is not due till the 17th. So, wait a minute, we are on week 8. I'm wrong. Sorry about that. Questions? Yeah, look, even fewer points. We do discussions of the posture evaluation, finishing that, and then the injury prevention. I think we're also finishing this and then kind of next week. So make sure if you come to lab, don't do that one. Even the posture, if you haven't done the posture yet, you can still catch it tonight in lab. If you don't want to do it at home, there you go. That even rhymes. And then the other thing we will do this week that I haven't touched on yet is after we're gonna finish part 2, we're gonna get into doing a pathology project. And the pathology project is where you go in groups of 3 of you. You choose a pathology that you would like to go a little deeper in understanding. So usually somebody has an affinity, low back pain, or is just, I don't know, has some cardiovascular in the family or diabetes or so. And so we have all kind of things that we can investigate a little. And then I want you guys to present as a group to the class a infographic with that. I'm thinking of doing this instead of a presentation this semester. And we do that together. I'll help you. I'll figure it out myself. But sort of an infographic that briefly in an elevator sort of speech level gives a person an understanding what the pathology is that you guys are investigating. What do you sort of get from mainstream medicine? And what is stuff that you can do on your own to help yourself as well with it? Because one of the things that I've seen in our modern medicine, as it is very vast and very interesting and has a lot going for it, one of the things that's challenging with all the diversity is access and what do we actually want. So a lot of times, especially with the chronic pathologies, we can do a lot to help, but we're not necessarily told by the system of how to do that. Partially because the doctors just don't have the time. They have such a pressure under them to get the people through. And so I figured we can do that a little bit for ourselves. And so in the group, you're going to have one person investigate further what is the pathology really, make a little graphic with a few bullet points and give us an understanding then with a video presentation of a couple minutes, nothing too fancy, of helping us understand what that pathology is. And then the next person goes a little deeper into the medical approach and talks about that and has pictures and a couple bullet points to talk a few of those. And then the last person, the third person, describes more of the self-help kind of things that we can do to aid the doctor as well, actually, as a matter of fact. And so the first thing we got to do with this project is we're going to join a group and make a group. And so I'm actually going to have to put up these groups. I'm always making mistakes, so make sure you test me and text me as soon as it doesn't work. These group things is really complicated for me for some weird reason. But I want you to go in and I want you to join a group. And you do that by going to people, and then in people, there are these groups, and in the groups, shoot, I got to probably make a little extra because I didn't put the group in yet. I gotta do that. I'm sorry about that. I was a little preoccupied the last few days. But then I want you to join a group sort of this week, and then into next week. And if you do that, if you're kind of a little slow with that, don't worry too much. I start also texting people that haven't joined the group and then help you along with getting that thing started. But that's sort of the first process to get into then the pathology project that we start talking about more next week in the beginning, or then really after the test. First, you're going to do that test. I want you to not be too scattered with the folk guide that I give you. All right, so that's from my perspective it. Any questions that you guys have?
Yeah, I have a question about joining a group. How will we like group up? Will we post something, be like, I want to study diabetes, and then someone's like, oh, okay,
Oh,
like you gather two other people with
yeah,
diabetes, or is there like
yeah.
a
Let's do
list?
that. That's smart. Let's do that. Do you want to? Yeah, why don't you guys text me what if you have a pathology you would like? Text me what it is, and then I can maybe send a group text out. What do you think?
Okay.
And then maybe I could say like, hey, if you're interested in diabetes, join group 2 or something.
Yeah, see that.
Huh?
Yeah, I like that as like a catchment system because I don't know. There's a lot of diseases out there, so I don't
No,
know how
that's
anyone.
very cool. Yeah, because in the beginning we were more going like join the group by looking at the people profile, see who you would like to work. But I think actually taking it from a perspective from the disease itself, that's much better. I think. So yeah, could you? Yeah, let's do that. Let's if you have it, and I'm gonna text you guys on that something. But if you have something you're interested, text me that, and then I start making a list and maybe connect a few of you together that have the same interest, or shoot out texts where people can sign up to certain groups with that interest.
Okay,
Good.
I'll
Thank
send
you.
you a few in a few.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that thought up. That's excellent. Any other great thoughts like that, please? We're always trying to make it better.